Boom. So we're recording now. Oh baby, what's up, dude?
Let's go.
Let me get us live on Facebook and then we can jam.
Awesome.
This
Sounds
is
good.
gonna be the part that people skip at the beginning of each cast.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, skip the first 30 seconds. But in the meantime, while this is loading up, how are you, man? Tell me more about where you're at right now. Again, you say you're Houston, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Houston. Andres, good to talk to you. Thanks for having me on today. Yeah, things are good in Houston. I've lived here since 2017, ever since I finished selling books and started my full job, I guess, at the full-time job at the beginning of 2018. But yeah, things are good. Still trying to ride out the wave of this pandemic, but things are, I think things are progressing in the right direction down here. Everyone's kind of in the same boat of just ready to get back to some normalcy, but
Yeah.
loving life. Things are good.
Hell yeah, man. Cool. So tell me, hold on, I'm gonna put in here. Oh, this is episode number 17, bro. So excited to have you. So one of the things I wanted to do with this podcast, and which is why I'm glad that you're on here, is because I know you, like I've met you before.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I if I saw you at like a store, I would be like, hey, what's up, Kevin?
Yeah.
But I don't know you super well, right? So that's the thing about this that I'm like, I'm gonna get to just meet a bunch of book people.
No, I love it. I think that's great.
And you were Eagle Blitz, right? Is that?
Yeah, I was Eagle Blitz for the first 3 years, and then we got merged under Virgie my last summer in 2017. So Dynasty was my last year.
Dang. Oh, Dynasty.
Yeah, a lot of the old Eagle Blitz West people were trying to hold that torch high that we were still Eagle Blitz, but no, we were technically Dynasty.
So so you Eagle Blitz, and then when was your first summer, or how many total summers did you sell?
I sold for 4 summers from 2014 to 2017.
14 to 17. That was my third summer, and then okay. So that's part of the reason probably why I don't know you as well, is because you came towards the time when I was leaving. So you stopped caring a little bit as much about the new people. You know what I'm saying?
Trust me, I get it.
So that's exciting. Cool. And then where did you sell?
So first summer I was in Mississippi. Second summer Georgia. Third summer was Southern Indiana, just across the river from Louisville, and then last summer was in South Carolina. So I kind of stayed in the southeastern region of the U.S. throughout those 4 summers, but had a great time. A lot of fun stories of just working in the sticks, man. A lot of rural towns that I was working in. So have a huge love and somewhat of a hate for some of the country selling, but absolutely love my experiences down there. So
and we'll get into some of those.
Here
in a sec.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah. So okay, hang on. I'm trying to figure out.
I'm gonna crack a beer, by the way, while we're at it.
Dude, yeah, please.
Cheers.
Please. What are you drinking?
Just a Miller Lite. I got to drive later, so I was gonna grab a glass of whiskey, but I'm just gonna stick with the beer for today.
You got it, dude. A glass of whiskey, though. I mean, you're driving in 2 hours. You could. I'm not condoning drinking and driving. I'm just saying.
We'll save that for the next time. How's that?
Well done. It's funny because after people have been on the show and they listen to this, they'll go, "Oh, I know what that meant."
There you go.
So okay, this is about ready to go live.
Awesome.
Zoom is connecting to Facebook, and then we'll just be going. 4 summers. I'm gonna try with you something new, which is I want you to introduce yourself instead of me introducing the person.
Cool.
See how this will be a new thing for me. So we'll see. Does that work?
Perfect. Sounds great.
Cool.
Just give me the green light when you're ready.
Yes, sir. Just about. I should just put this in here. This should go live now. And setting up your meeting, Facebook Live. Here it comes. This is awesome. This is my favorite thing about having done this podcast is how much support it's like weirdly gotten.
Organically grown.
Yeah, dude. We have not promoted it besides just sharing stuff on Facebook. No money into it.
Yeah.
People are like, hey, can I get on? It's like, hell yeah, you can. Good job. For pleasure. Let's have a beer together. I don't have a beer on me, but I will go get one in just a sec. But first of all, hello. We're live. please,
Andres,
please
good
tell us
talking to you.
about. Please introduce yourself. This is new to us. Let's see what happens this way. I
Yeah.
like introducing people, but maybe you got more to say and it's better than I do it. Maybe.
No, that's cool. Well, what's up, guys? Kevin Flavin here, phoning in from Houston. Four summer book guy, started in 2014 and finished in 2017. I was telling a little bit about where I was working earlier with Andre. So I started in Mississippi that first summer, worked in Georgia, and then Southern Indiana, and then South Carolina to wrap up my fourth summer. So definitely stayed in the Southeast, working as an analyst right now, as well as a studio manager at a fitness studio, and just really loving life. I'm excited to be on here today. I've had a chance to listen to some of the podcasts so far, and it's bringing back a lot of great memories just from knocking on doors back in the day, just hearing people's stories and being able to relate in some ways to a lot of those stories, and in other cases not being able to relate so much. So just excited, to kind of dive in today and see where the conversation takes us. So Andres, thanks for having me today.
Dude, great. That was good. I kind of like that. Intro. This is good. All right. I'm game. Okay, so let's dig in. First of all, thank you for being here. Nick might be joining us soon. I don't know. For now, it's just us. We're gonna jam. I love the one-on-ones as well. So
no, this is great.
It works. So you went into Southwestern in 2014. The climate at that time was an interesting time period because it felt like Southwestern was in a bit of a at least in the force, it was a bit of a downhill spiral. But to
How
you,
so?
it was
just with like attitude or sales or what? Or
I think total. Well, this is something that I've with older book people that I've talked about, that this seemed to be like you go in peaks and troughs. This is definitely heading towards a trough in Southwestern production, because I'll just put it this way. So Hannah Reesberg was the #1 first year in 2012, had 6,000 units.
Yeah.
Right. The top 10 person sold like 4,100, 4,200. Right. That top 10 person would have been like the #1 for the majority of the years since. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, for sure.
People were still selling 10,000 units, but like that first summer that I had, there was like multiple people had 10,000 units, or like 9,500. Like, the cutoff at the very end of the top first year production for like the number 150 was like 1,800 units or something. Like it just seemed like people were producing more. But to you, people were still making money as first years, right? Like
no, for sure. I mean, I had a pretty decent first summer as a first year. Granted, I owe a lot of that success to my org. I had a lot of great managers that year, and I think our org overall, not just managers, but first years too. I think we probably had, I don't know, maybe 15 to 20 out of the top 100 rookies. So, and when we had, I think we probably had 4 or 5 of the top 10. So it was pretty solid. But yeah, I owe a lot of my success to Southwestern from my managers and just the attitude of that org in Mississippi. We just took over the whole state, and it felt like everyone was buying books in that state that summer. So it was a lot of fun. And from there, I think that kind of set the tone for what my orgs should have been like in the following summers in terms of not only attitude, but just overall production, just because we were jamming. We had Kyle Kelly, Taylor Savoy, Reed Joseph, Bethany Joseph. Austin Souders was in that org. Just a lot of really solid, not only producers, but just solid people. And it was fun to be in that environment for the entire summer. Because I felt like it raised that belief barrier. And I feel like, I'm sure that'll be something we talk about today, is just like the ability for, leaders to lead by example. And from there, when you're following a manager who's just jamming, it's like, man, like I got to step up my game, So definitely was a good tone center for my 4 summers that I ended up selling, was trying to replicate some of those feelings and those motivating factors, I'll call them, that went into that first summer from that org. It was crazy to think how many units that entire org sold that summer.
So
go ahead.
So let me ask this. So, because that is a star-studded team. That's like heavy hitters all across the board. That's amazing. before we get into that production, because I do want to hear about this, that I didn't realize that all of you guys were in one org. That's
Yeah.
incredible. So I want to hear about that, because I always love Jam talking about like what people did to just kick ass.
Yeah.
But let's rewind a little bit. How did you get into Southwestern? Tell us a story about like what were you doing? What part of the year was it? Was it a questionnaire? Did you get floated? Like what happened?
Yeah. Oh man.
Who
And
was it?
so yeah, I'll cover all that stuff. So I remember vividly, it was in one of my history classes, and just for context, I was a math major at A&M. I'll say this much, that my major was not heavily recruited as far as salespeople, just because there's not a lot of extroverts or people who want to go into sales from the math department as a whole. So I got lucky, because we have some students at A&M who get hit with these questionnaires in 5, 6, 7 classes a semester. In all of my years at A&M, I only had one person survey a class, and I still owe. I've thanked her. Haven't reached out to her in a while, but I should, because I owe her a big one. Elisa Serrato was the one who surveyed my class, and it was one of the typical situations of like, fill this out if you're just looking for some experience, looking to earn some money. I think it was probably like late February, early March, something like that. So I'm like, I had a pretty solid internship with a natural gas company the summer before. So I'm like, I hadn't had anything lined up for that following summer. So I'm like, you know what the hell? Might as well just fill it out, see what happens. And, yeah, exactly. Yeah, hook was set at that point. So get a call from Claudia Vega, sister of Pedro, the great Pedro Vega. And anyway, she just invites me into an informational. The one thing I want to touch on here, and maybe that we can table this idea for later in the podcast, but I think this is something that is very true amongst most book people, is having an open-minded attitude. And I think that is something that I attribute a lot of my success to Southwestern, and from then is just having an open mind about whatever comes across my desk. So that was definitely a situation where I was like, I'm just going to go learn more. I have absolutely nothing to lose. Like if it's just something that I learn more about and don't want to pursue at all, it's an hour of my time, no big deal.
At the end of the day, did you die? No. Let's just
go. At the end, yeah, exactly. So fast forward, go to the informational. If I remember correctly, it was Amber Bragg, now Thomas, and Amberly Thielman, and
legend.
Now Amberly Kessler. So both Amber and Amberly were running the info, and I think Ben Goodman was kind of assisting with some of the the questionnaires and some of those sheets getting filled out. But had a lot of really solid people running my info. From there, run through it. I love the idea of being able to travel. Hadn't done much of that from an internship mentality, and hadn't really been offered anything or even pursued anything that had the option to travel up to that point. So that was something that was interesting. I knew a couple guys. Casey Fadig was one. I knew him from church at A&M. So like the credibility of Southwestern was honestly what intrigued me. The fact that they had been around for so long and had so much success in the 150 some odd years that they had been around. But also just like the pedigree of people that I knew from campus who were Aggies and who had sold books was a pretty good list of people. And I was like, clearly there's something about this that attracts a hardworking individual, which at that point I thought I was. So I was like, I want to see where this goes.
They got you with the association.
Yeah, exactly. And then from there, I remember this conversation, not so much what was said, but more the tone of it. So Amberly Thielman, now Kessler, she pulls me in to, kind of for the screening to get the first interview. And dude, I was so intimidated by Amberly, I'll tell you that much right now. And now, like, I was at their wedding, and I need to reach out to her and say hi. I haven't spoken with her in a bit, but since then, obviously, I've become good friends. But in that initial like screening interview, and I think she's like my age or maybe like a year older, like she might as well have been like 40. I was so intimidated by just how confident.
She's a strong personality.
Yeah,
she's confident as hell. Yeah.
So, and in that moment, like I was confident enough in my interview abilities. I was just kind of laying it out. Like, yeah, I've worked basically since I was 15. Worked in a restaurant for a long time. Basically every summer and Christmas break from like sophomore year of high school through to that point when I was a sophomore in college, I was always working. So it was like I had a good work ethic, and certainly appreciated some of what those guys were doing, and didn't have that negative connotation of sales that a lot of those potential first years have whenever they go to an informational. I kind of had an open mind about sales, and obviously the benefits and the challenges of it too. So fast forward a little bit, I go, if I remember correctly, this is where it gets a little fuzzy. I can't remember if it was Pedro or Claudia that interviewed me, and they were, as brother and sister, they were kind of tag teaming the interview process, and basically everyone that was going to be selected was going to be on Pedro's team. So I don't know how all that worked, but got to know Pedro a little bit, and frankly, there were a lot of similarities that he and I have. One of which, we're the only son of a big Catholic family. He has, if I remember right, 6 sisters. I have 4 sisters, and we're both a boy. And have a lot of similarities. Both of us love Aggie football. Both of us love music, love being Catholic, things like that. So we had a lot of just natural things to talk about that were easy stuff. It wasn't, and certainly from a professional standpoint, like I was trying to put my best foot forward so I could get selected by Pedro. But it was just so easy to talk to him. And I think that was, I'll be honest, I think in a large part why I wanted to do it was I saw a lot of qualities in Pedro that I wanted to possess someday. And from there it kind of translated into a bigger friendship over the many summers that I sold. But there were a lot of key players there that I just ran through between the two, Amber Lee, Ben Goodman, Pedro, Claudia, all those, a lot of those people who I owe my success to from Southwestern. It's cool that a lot of those players were involved in either the informational or, the interview process or what have you. Yeah. But, from there, and I forgot to mention Elisa, she took the courage to survey my class, and it was, just the way all those pieces fell into place. Right. And I, many years later now I'm, doing an interview on a podcast, as a result of some of those people's, ability to step outside their comfort zone. And, in Elisa's case, like, it's not a comfortable thing to survey a class and pass out those questionnaires when, some people have a negative, connotation as to what Southwestern is on A&M's campus. But despite that stigma, she was able to kind of push through and survey the class, and as a result I was selected due to her courage. So it's like, I think all those things kind of play into it, and I think it's fun to think that way in hindsight of like, if it wasn't for this person's courage, I wouldn't be sitting here. So it's like, I think there's a lot of that in Southwestern. But it looks like you have something you're going to ask.
Well, no, it's just on that point, it's an interesting thing to think about, because like it's just like a domino thing, right? So you can't, there's like no really, like, for example, my brother and his wife, right, they met because they sold books. Now you could say I had a lot to do with it because I recruited Danny,
right?
But then you could go back for okay, well, Steve recruited me, so if Steve had, it's like, and then you got to go down Aisha's side, right? Like,
right.
And now they're gonna have a baby in May. I'm gonna be an uncle, right? Just because I decided to go to an informational session, and Aisha and Angela, who recruited Aisha, decided, you know what I'm saying? Like, all these pieces, and then here's a baby.
Well, it's just, it is really fun to think about it, because in the grand scheme of things, I know people can say what they want about Southwestern, whether negative or positive. I don't care. If it's negative, there was certainly enough of an experience, whether it was the connections that you built, friendships or what have you, that it had some type of impact on every single person. I like to think so. I try to stay more positive in my perspective here, but no, it's just like, it's cool to think of all those people, and it really sucks that, like, as the years go on, you kind of lose touch with people. But I think that's one thing about Southwestern I've loved, is like, you pick up where you left off whenever you can reconnect with someone. And like with you, for example, like, I don't think the last time, or I think the last time we spoke was probably in New Orleans. I have this vivid memory. It was
2015.
What's up?
2016.
I think it was 2016, but it was you, me, and I think Drew Williams we were in the French Quarter. I remember this, and we went to like some oyster bar. I don't know if you remember this. But we had a great time. And like, I think that was the first time you and I really got a chance to know each other. But that's the beauty of some of these relationships is you just pick up where you left off, and there's no ill will. You know, life happens. There's a lot that goes into each and everyone's lives. So I think that's one thing I appreciate is, for the most part, every time I reconnect with a book person, it's, you know, all those years kind of melt away. You just pick up where you left off.
Yeah. And on that, it's like kind of to what you were saying about, you know, it impacted everyone in some way. Like nobody, no matter what kind of experience you have in Southwestern, nobody is upset that the person who recruited them.
Yeah.
Even if you had a terrible way of going out for whatever reason, who cares?
Yeah.
Like at the beginning of it, like what you learn from it, I'm always going to be thankful to see you know, for sure. I mean, I ended up not becoming a DSM, or, you know, had a couple bad summers, had a couple good summers, but like at the end of the day, regardless of all that and money and whatever, like Steve changed my life, you know, like, for the better, for the better, you know? And so interesting. And then on that too, just this idea of all the different ways that you can like connect with someone again, because it's like shared, whether you call it shared trauma or shared just experience or whatever.
It's
but
trauma.
There's something, but there's and we chose it, right? Like we knew
for sure.
I think some people knew better than others, and I think others minded less than others about how much they really know about going into it. But the one thing about Southwestern is they never ever told you it was easy or that it was going to be easy. In fact, they tried to scare you away. Like they're like, this sucks, you know? The reason it's good is because it sucks, right? They were upfront about that, you know?
I remember on that note, I'd have to mention this because it kind of goes along with whenever I was selected and going through the interview process. So my dad he's someone I look up to a lot, and just professionally and personally, et cetera. And in the process of being interviewed, you know, I was running through a few of the details. And at that point, like I had enough independence where it was like, if I was going to sell books, it was going to be my decision. I was just going to get my parents' blessing. Like I was not like, but we have a good enough relationship and they have enough faith in me. That's like, all right, Kevin has a good enough head on his shoulders. He's not going to pursue something that's too good to be true, if that makes sense. So anyway, the reason I bring this up is like, I remember thinking to myself in the middle of the interview process and the informational, all those players that we talked about earlier were not too bashful to admit, saying like, hey, this is hard work. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like there's no trick to this. You have to go work hard. And I think because of that, it kind of let my guard down a little bit in a good way, because I was like, they're not trying to sell something that's too good to be true, right? That it's like, okay, it's 80 or 85 hours a week.
Door to door.
Yeah, door to door. Like there's nothing, there's nothing overly attractive about those details, right? So I think because of that and their transparency with how difficult the job was and how hard you had to work, that is honestly part of it, where I had to explain to my parents, I'm like, listen, this is not and I just thought of a story I need to share before I forget. But I was like, yeah, this is not something that's too good to be true. Like I'm going to be working my ass off all summer. Hopefully y'all can support me with it. So fast forward a little bit. I have to share this story because it's kind of a neat coincidence. So
that's the point of this thing. Yeah, please.
Yeah, like I just thought of this. So after I get selected, you know, we have the parent visit and all that. So it was really cool because my parents, who are extremely hospitable, they hosted one summer while I was selling, I think in Indiana, if I remember correctly. But whenever Pedro did the parent visit, my parents like invited him in, of course, like cooked him dinner, gave him like kind of laid out the red carpet for him so he could feel welcome. So I was not there. I think I was back at school studying for an exam or something. I don't remember all the details, but he was in Houston, I think, knocking out a lot of, because he had a huge team several years in a row. And I think that was one year he selected several people from the Houston area and just knocked out all those parent visits in one day, and one of which is my parents. So he's running through the idea of what Southwestern is, what I'm going to be doing all summer, why the hell I'm, you know, following this guy to wherever we're going to be that summer. I don't think we had found out. And my mom is like, so y'all sell books door to door. Okay, give me a second. So she runs upstairs And sure enough, she pulls off the volume libraries off the so she had, this was years ago. And I remember vividly that like my mom had bought books from some dude who randomly showed up at our front door. After she mentions this story to, you know, to Peter and all that stuff. So frankly, I didn't use the books like all but like 4 or 5 times like in my childhood. But I was my mom is just, she's super positive, and she was like, oh yeah, like I'm sure Kevin will find use for him at some point, right? And she this is the beauty of the situation, is we have some of the Advantage books now at home, and she's a special education teacher, so she's found uses for some of those books that we have around the house. So it's not in vain that she bought the volume library back in the day. Do I wish I maybe knew a little bit more about how those books work and how much they could have helped me? Yeah, for sure. But it's funny, it was just a funny coincidence that years later, Pedro's, you know, having dinner with my parents, and all of a sudden she runs upstairs to grab the books off the bookshelf. She's like, are these them?
Like,
and
kind of.
Of course, Pedro was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this is ridiculous.
That's awesome.
So,
you know, and you know, this is on that, like they're helpful books. My roommate's girlfriend, so my roommate's Colin Appel, he sold around the time you did.
That name rings a bell. I don't know if I've met him though.
He is from the same hometown. Danny recruited him.
Okay.
And cool guy. So we live together, and his girlfriend had to take this like math class and algebra class for whatever school, whatever. I hadn't seen math in 6 years. Like, why the hell would I remember any of this? So she's like using the second math book because that's still in there. And so she's in like, she'll sit here on this table and just she'll have the book out. I'm like, this is epic. Like,
no,
they're good books.
No, they are. And frankly, like, despite the fact that I didn't use them a ton growing up, I remember this question being asked multiple times when I was selling. It was like, did you have these growing up? And I could confidently say yes. I couldn't confidently say that I used them, but I could confidently say yes. Like my mom bought them when someone knocked on my door. So that part of it was kind of fun, just because there was some some similarities. But my mom's a buyer. That's her personality. And of course, I don't think my dad was even there. She probably was just like, oh, like I make the decisions. Yeah, exactly.
That's like awesome.
So, no, but I love that. It was and it was a cool story, because I think Pedro was the one who told me. I don't think my parents shared that. He's like, hey man, like, like your parents bought like years ago. I'm like, oh,
you own these?
Yeah.
Did you? So what part of did you mention this? What part of, was it fall, spring? How close to the summer was it when you were getting recruited? Like when
it was February, March, like the second semester going into that summer. So
this part of the year before May, before you went.
Yeah. So it was a few months before the end of the semester. And at that point, it was like, I remember having some dialogue with like some older professionals, mainly like who I knew through my dad, like having some initial conversations of like, hey, like, do y'all have any internship opportunities available? But it was merely just like first emails, things like that I'd started to send out for that semester. And then sure enough, it was like a week or two within that window that Elisa surveyed my class, and the rest is history.
There you were. Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then you guys went to Indiana that first summer?
Mississippi was the first.
Mississippi was the first. Yeah. Summer, which is interesting, because how close is that to Nashville? Like we're in Mississippi.
Well, where I was, I want to say it was probably 4.5 to 5 hours or something like that.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. And what was cool about that summer was like, we had a lot of Aggies kind of in that state, just, kind of taking over, which was fun, because, we had, let's see, me and my 3 roommates that summer. Kyle Kelly was our manager. It was me, Andrew Taylor, and then Matthew Bowl were the 3 first years.
So for reference, Kyle Kelly was the #1 rookie the year before.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he only sold for 4 weeks that summer. He was elected as student body president. So anyway, long story short, he got selected. He was there for the 4 summers, or the 4 weeks, excuse me, and then headed back home. And then it was just me and the other 2 first years to like run the ship on our own. Which, like, I will say this much in hindsight, because I know this as a man, like having managed for 3 summers, like they must have had a lot of faith in our HQ that we were going to like run a tight ship, because if like without a manager, that was just going to be three rookies after a month. Right.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't like it was like week 9 and on. It was like still towards the beginning of your summer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were literally, 4 out of 13 weeks in or something like that. Yeah. And then we just didn't have a manager. And then I remember Andrew Taylor actually moved to a different HQ. So it was just me and Matthew Bull, who like, we're still tight. Like we catch up every once in a while. He only sold for one summer, but like it was just the two of us for the rest of the summer. So like it was, and that actually brings up a funny story. I don't know how much y'all have talked about HQs within this podcast, but that first summer was probably one of the most bizarre HQ experiences.
Yes.
So
I'm down for funny HQ stories. Meredith Gardner shared some funny HQ stories.
I'll say this much, like progressively as my summers went on, I only got better HQ situations. But with that said, it was really easy to beat this first summer. So so this dude, his name was Khalid. Awesome, a very, very nice guy. He was originally from Bangladesh, if I remember correctly. And kind of I'll tee this up in a way that will explain how we found him. So of course, like you're going to like every length to try and find HQs that first weekend or few days of the summer.
Yeah.
So A&M has a really cool deal. It's the aggienetwork.com. It's basically like a list of all these alumni of the school. So we look up Oxford, Mississippi, which is the same town that Ole Miss is located. So we're looking this up. We're like, surely there have to be some Aggies that might be able to point us in the right direction. We look up this one dude, we call him. I say we, I mean Reed Joseph calls him. And he lives in an apartment off of College Hill Road, which like I can literally drive back to if I wanted. Like I know, and I think the apartment complex has since been like raised because it was not a very good apartment. So anyway, we show up, and it was the four of us looking to move into a 2-bedroom apartment where Khalid was in the other bedroom. Okay. And the reason Khalid was there.
Shitting me.
No, I'm dead serious. So the way this is set up, so Khalid was in Oxford because I think if I remember, he was a geology like PhD candidate or something like that. Obviously like very, very bright guy. But he was like fixated on what we were doing. Like he was really fascinated by like, okay, so you guys are going door to door. I have to mention some of the details of this HQ because I remember vividly, Reed Joseph walked in with me and I think maybe Matt. I think it was just the three of us at that point. And then Andrew and Kyle were off like looking for HQs elsewhere. And they had kind of explained to Khalid ahead of time, like, here's what we're looking for. He's like, well, I've got an extra bedroom available.
For 4 dudes.
What's up?
For 4 dudes.
Yeah, for 4 dudes. Yeah. So anyway, like Reed being super positive. And again, like you learn this in manager training, like to always like be super positive. So he walks in, he's like, oh yeah, like this is a great setup. Like this is fantastic. Me not knowing any different, I just kind of follow his lead. I'm like, all right, sounds like this is a good setup. Like, I guess we're just gonna make this happen. So
because you didn't know any better.
I didn't know any better. I was just like,
yeah.
Cool, I guess this is where I'm living this summer. All right. So in hindsight, awful situation. Like,
yeah, that's terrible.
Like, because I slept on an air mattress all summer. There was one extra mattress, which I swear probably had bed bugs or something, that I think Kyle and Andrew slept on. And then Matt slept on like a yoga mat for the duration of the summer. So like, it was not a good situation at all. But I'd be remiss not to bring this up. This apartment was filthy, like absolutely filthy.
Oh,
so
no.
like, this is going to get really gross here. So we're like, we have to come up with like an assembly line. Like there's not a lot of square footage in this apartment at all. And like, I have no idea how many, but it was basically
4 too many dudes.
Yeah, exactly.
And no space.
Yeah, like this would have been tight for like just Khalid, but it was Khalid and 4 plus ones. So anyway, we have to come up with like an assembly line for like just making our lunches, because there's no room. Like we had to figure out a way to prepare for the week. So I remember vividly, we like all had the same lunches every week because we had to make our sandwiches, throw them in the fridge, and then we just grab them first thing in the morning. But I have to bring this up. There were fruit flies like all over Khalid's kitchen because he had like all this old fruit that was like kind of nasty. Is gross. So, and then, oh man, I'm just realizing this as I say it. The shower was like, it was like black. It was gross, man. Like I can't even put it into words. And then the worst part was you couldn't walk barefoot across the apartment without getting like sand or dust or I don't even know what it was.
Dude.
All over your feet. Oh, it was disgusting. So
what?
Yeah.
Why? How?
I don't know. The hygiene was not this gentleman's forte at all. I think geology was his forte. But the worst part, or probably the funniest part about this was Khalid actually lived in Austin with his family. So he was just in Oxford for this, part of the summer or whatever. So at one point he ended up going back to Texas. And I remember the collective like agreement between the four of us was, and this was not even stated, it was just assumed. It was like, okay, we were going to clean this place spotless, like right now. Cause I remember it was on a Sunday. So like one of us had, I think I ran to the grocery store for all four of us. Someone like deep cleaned the shower. The other person like mopped and swept. And like the place was spotless after that weekend. But for the first however many weeks of the summer, we were dealing with like this very, very gross situation. And what was so funny is every day Khalid, we would walk in the door and I remember this vividly. He would eat with his bare hands. So like he didn't use utensils. So like whenever he would watch TV, he had to put like a plastic bag over the remote. So like he wouldn't get the remote all gross. I did not think I'd be getting into this story on this podcast. This
is wild.
Oh, I know. And so anyway, we, and some of these details are kind of flooding back as I'm telling the story, but anyway,
that's why people have enjoyed being on here because
I'm like, man, it's uncovering like so many memories I forgot I had. So that's good. Like all due respect to Khalid and everything, like I have to mention like super nice guy. I'm very like we were very grateful that he was willing to put us up. But every night without fail, he would ask us the same question. He would ask, so back at it again tomorrow, eh? We were like, yes, Khalid, like Monday through Friday. Like we explained this at the beginning of the summer, like 85 hours a week. We're going right back at it again. And it was without fail all summer. He was asking that question, back at it again.
Back at it again.
Yeah. And he was very genuine, just like, again, so intrigued as to what we were doing and why we were doing it. But it was just, I had to share that story. And
I'm glad.
Yeah.
That's insane, dude. What the fuck?
Like fast forward to the remaining summers. My second summer, Diane Pinkstaff was my and like I lived with a bunch of dudes, and she was an old time host mom. Like she had hosted a bunch of European students, so she knew the drill. She was reluctant to host a bunch of dudes, but like after that summer, she was like, okay, like boys aren't so bad.
Nice.
Yeah, my third summer was really cool because it was like I live with a mom who was actually a foster mom, and I've kind of lost touch with her. I should probably try and reach out at some point, but she put up me and two other dudes. And I do have to mention this story because her place was also a mess, but at least she lived in a house. So I remember we got there and it wasn't an apartment, it was an actual house that had 3 bedrooms.
Space.
Yeah, it had space. So what was so funny though is I remember vividly having a similar Reed Joseph attitude of like walking in and being like, oh yeah, like this place will work great. And then like 6 hours later, we offer to like clean up one of the bedrooms, which had like the shit from like from one of her foster kids, like all of her, like that prior foster kid stuff was still in the bedroom and it was like everywhere. So anyway, like we're cleaning this up and slowly like my attitude is like, it goes from it's a roller coaster of like this is going to work great to holy shit, like why did I even think this was a good situation, back to okay, I think we can actually make this work. So I remember the 2 first years that I had that summer, they stayed in 1 bedroom. I was like, the hell with you guys, I'm getting my own bedroom. So I just kind of tucked away.
Take stat calls, it's fine.
Yeah, no, of course. And I ended up sleeping on an air mattress again that summer. But then my fourth summer, this woman was incredible, and I've kept in touch with her. She's a single mom, and never had any boys. And that summer she got 4 boys that live with her, and it was one of those situations where one of my first years, or one of the guys I was rooming with, like knocked on her door and was basically like, "Hey, like we're looking for a place to stay." And off the cuff, she was like, "Well, I have 2 extra bedrooms if y'all just want to stay here." Like, so like super positive
Oh,
lady.
hell yeah.
And one of those deals where he calls me, and I remember I was like right around the corner. I'm like, "I'll be right there." So I introduced myself. I explained the details. Since this was my 4th summer at this point now, like knew exactly what she should be able to expect. And I was able to articulate that really well. She's like, "Well, if y'all need to move in like now, that's fine." I'm like, I was about ready to kiss this lady on the cheek.
Damn.
She was great. But established like a really great relationship with her. I call her now like every Mother's Day, because like she was our mom.
Yeah,
Summer,
man.
like she was great. And I try and catch up with her as often as I can. But that's where I'm talking, like the progression of host moms or host families over the summer definitely improved. And yeah, like all those stories are just so worthwhile to remember, because like that lady in particular, Kim Massengill, like I'm going to be inviting like to my wedding. Like she's just super positive lady, and was so fascinated with how hard we were working that summer. So like it was just a fun relationship that developed out of selling books. But
that is so cool. Speaking of that, we just stayed where was I? Oh, Brennan Q and Amanda Peterson, or Amanda Q now. At their wedding.
I listened to their interview. That was great.
Yeah. His host dad, or a couple of his host parents, were at the wedding.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's just, you learn to appreciate kind of like a safe haven at the end of a very emotionally trying day. And I think this is what makes the difference between like a good and a bad host situation, is when they kind of just stay on their routine. Like she didn't really adjust her schedule to work around us. She was just like, "You guys do you. Like I trust that you guys are working hard." And we would do our best to try and keep things tidy. That was, I think, one frustrating part of that summer, was like trying to teach first years of like, guys, we're like guests in this woman's house. Like we have to keep this place tidy. And I remember there was one day she got like real upset with us, and I had to kind of step in as the manager to, quell the situation, make sure everything was fine, and it turned out being all right. But it was just like a matter of like, hey guys, we can't like take advantage of her hospitality, right? Like she's been so kind to us, and the least we can do is just pick up after ourselves. But that was just like I remember like a weird situation, because we had a crazy dynamic between the 4 of us that lived in our house that summer. We had like the worst PR I've ever experienced. And it was a situation where like child abduction was like mentioned in the Facebook post. And I think that one post was shared like 1 million times or it was viewed 1 million times, like within our like 4 or 5 county radius. So
that's not good, bro. That's a lot of people and where were you, in Georgia?
No, that summer I was in South Carolina.
That's a lot of people in South Carolina. That's a lot of people. That's more people. That's half the state population of Nebraska.
Yeah, like it was. it was not a good deal. And I'll say this much: I think that part of the summer was a big reason as to why that was my final summer. It was difficult to like try and maintain my integrity and like try and sell just my integrity before I even tried to sell myself or my books. It was just like, no, man, like this is all I'm doing. Like, here's my company name, like look me up, like, and having to try and like play catch up with that. But I'll say this much, like, I'm proud of myself and those 3 guys that, finished with me, because we had, we didn't have anyone leave from my HQ that summer. It was
that's
really
huge,
really solid, despite some of that adversity. Right. And like, I'll say this much, in terms of like my stats and all that stuff, I was never a huge book slinger. I think collectively over the 4 summers, I probably sold 10,000 units or something like that, over the total. And the picture I like to paint is like, I'm not a Michael Jordan of book selling. I'm more of like a Steve Kerr. Like I was more of a role player. I made the shots when they counted, and definitely had a big part of like the team camaraderie. But I wasn't out there, selling 5, 6, 7+ thousand units. I was there for the growth and the good memories and experiences that I was able to take from it. And on top of that, too, the relationship that I was able to build. So it's like,
Yeah.
And people might attribute that to whatever as to why I wasn't selling more. I can say this much, like I was working my ass off all the time and trying to approach each and every day with a good attitude. But I think some of us just inherently are better salespeople than others. And I was trying to kind of break through that barrier, and it just never quite worked for me. But it doesn't change my attitude about Southwestern at all. I still loved it.
That is a very, very healthy perspective on your experience. It's very humble. You're a humble dude, bro. Like that's
Thanks, man.
cool. Yeah,
No,
that's
it's just like I wasn't trying to be a hero, and selling books. I think the thing I got more out of it was, I think, the leadership style of some of the best leaders in the company, kind of that tough love of like, you need to step up your game. I'm here for you if you ever need me, but like just that healthy dosage of tough love where you have to be supportive and help people out. And I think that leadership style, and some of what I do now has certainly shown through, and I'm grateful for Southwestern as a result of that. But yeah, no, I was never slinging a shit ton of books over the course of my summers. I had some great days, which I'd love to touch on too, but
we'll get into those.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude. So that is part of like the culture that was placed and done by Pedro. It sounds like
Yeah.
he was I mean, I know Pedro. He's a great dude from all accounts of every conversation that I've had with him, even though they haven't been super long and they haven't been frequent or abundant, but there has been enough for me to say that I could see why people stuck around for him. I can see why he was able to recruit as he did, because he was able to establish that culture of his vision really well. I mean, it seemed like anyway. But
no, he did. He had a very clear vision, and I think with that, it was like I always had someone in my corner that, and I said this earlier, that trust was established from the beginning. Where I think he and I had so many similar life experiences up to that point that I was like, okay, like this he's a few years older than me. He has some things that I want, and I want to see what more this relationship can provide for me. Not selfishly, obviously, but just from a growth standpoint. I was like, what more can I take from this experience and through the relationship I have with Pedro? And he was obviously in my corner that whole way. I think it was my last summer that he moved on from Southwestern. And I'll never forget him telling me, like, he was in tears whenever he left. Like because of course, when you build that much of an impact in a community, it's going to be tough to step away. But I didn't resent him for that at all. It was more so like he had a family at that point. And both he and I are very family oriented. So I'm like, dude, like you gotta do what you gotta do. If it's the best for your family financially or from a challenge standpoint, go for it. And go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, no, that was actually a point this is the thread we don't have to pull on if you don't want to, but that was an interesting thread that Steve cited and Josh. I don't know if you've heard that episode.
I haven't listened to that one yet. No.
It's a very interesting. It's a good one, I think. But in it, Steve talks about how the financial opportunity once you get up and higher in the company, or even just like relatively speaking to other door-to-door businesses, is actually not very high. Like they don't like a full-timer does not get paid well in general.
Right.
Like John Stewart at the peak of his like organization was making like, I think he made like $195,000 or something. And even if you take that and divide it by the effort that he put in for personal sales and then the hours he had to have put in to bring out a team like that and to build the organization like that in over 2 or 3 years, is, even though $197,000 is significant to anybody, right? Sure. It's still relatively to the effort, it's low.
No, I
would
agree with that.
Yeah.
And like, cause I basically my last summer, I had a weird situation. So I took a victory lap at A&M, did the 5-year plan.
Oh yeah.
I only took one class that last semester because that was the last credit I needed to graduate. So I worked this out pretty well where I could full-time and still take that one class. And I think like for commits. Like most full timers have like 100 commits for a week or whatever. I think mine was like 80 or something, just because of school, and like I basically had to do well in that class to graduate. So it's like I'm not gonna overcommit myself to Southwestern and then not graduate. So like I think that experience was certainly, it was so worthwhile, just from an ability to interview people and have that confidence on that side of the table. I loved it. And it was very natural for me, just with I think my personality and kind of how I carry myself as the authoritative figure. And I say authority meaning just the one running the interview. And the informationals. Like I loved the public speaking part of that. I thought it was great experience for anyone kind of going through that arena. But yeah, I'm with you as far as the effort that was put into that. And the thing that I think is really difficult is there's no real income that's produced in the short run. So it's like, it's a very unhealthy balance of like, especially for the people who don't have like a lot of financial stability going into full timing. It's like they're relying on a lot of like credit card usage and things like that. And that digs them a huge hole that it can be sometimes tough to get out of. And I remember having that conversation with several people of like, and it was just that part of it, full-time recruiting anyway, I think can be really difficult if you're not like financially stable going into that semester. But all that said, it's like, I got so much out of just the community there. I think having a good group of people that I was full-timing with, it certainly helped just my vision and my dedication to what I was trying to do that summer. And I think I brought out like 4 or 5 people. It wasn't anything too significant, but half that team ended up being early champions, but had a couple of people finish. So it was, for my time, it was worthwhile. And like I said before, I wasn't trying to conquer the world. I was just trying to, take advantage of that opportunity in front of me and see what I could get out of it. And I'm very grateful for those years. But
you just made me realize an interesting perspective that I didn't realize I had. Sorry, that's like really selfish.
No. What was the perspective?
I recruited a DSM of Southwestern.
There you go.
I've never thought of it like that. Like it was just my brother.
Yeah.
So like, because I only thought of it because you were like, oh, some of them were early champions, and then some of them like, when sold went and finished, and I'm like, yeah, I had actually most of my people quit except for, some stayed full summers, but nobody really made it. And then I was like, oh no, wait, no, Danny made it. So it's an interesting perspective because I've seen their journey.
Yeah.
And of somebody who did. I never did it. I tried. I failed miserably, but he did it. It's interesting to see that he's the only person that I saw Edgar do it, and I saw Shane Blick do it.
Yeah.
And that's really like.
I have a question for you, and I'm not trying to get like too personal, but as far as like, I'd say the similarities and differences between you and Danny, obviously y'all are both like of the same blood and of the same like genetics and everything. What do you think the biggest difference is, of his journey to becoming DSM or DSL, whatever it is now, to, whenever you decided to step away from Southwestern, what do you think the personality differences are? What are like the big differences that resulted in y'all's different paths within Southwestern, if that question makes sense?
Yeah, I think so. Like I before I go into the Southwestern stuff, I would say generally, and don't take a lot of weight with this because this is obviously coming off the cuff,
sure.
Like off the cuff, but the first way I'd answer that is I think Danny and I'm a lot more emotional than Danny is. Outwardly anyway. I don't know, I can't speak to how he processes his shit, but
right.
But like he's a lot more emotionally like even keel, and I think that's important. Like Brandon Q had asked what makes someone good at selling books specifically, like that environment of 80 hours a week, just jamming door to door. What makes you good at that part of Southwestern? And I think it's emotional intelligence. That's not to say that like if you don't sell 10,000 units, you're not emotionally intelligent. No, I think part of the emotional intelligence means that like you know how to use it when you need to, which means when shit hits bad, then you can stay even keeled. But when you're doing well, you don't get complacent because you stay even keeled.
Yeah.
And I rode that curve. So I was doing well, so sometimes I'd get complacent, and then I'd be doing shit, and I'd be like, whatever. So I was able to shake it off, but I think I didn't do it as quickly as someone like Danny, who's a lot more like can like control or can manage or can move on without like showing you how that he's
Yeah.
upset.
Doesn't ride those ebbs and flows, kind of more
Yeah.
steady Eddie. I got you.
I think in contrast, though, that's not necessarily a better thing. I think it's just more handy in selling books because I think in contrast, I think, and this is a little bit more again, more generally outside of self-publisher stuff, but I think I'm able to process things faster. Like I'm more aware of how I'm feeling. I'm very aware, like, and which is why I tell you, hey, I'm pissed, I'm annoyed, I'm happy, I'm feeling silly or whatever. It's harder to like get that from dating, but that's but that is a good thing for self-publisher. That's a good, because you're able to just like zoom, and then every house it's like you're approaching it on right. So but then like as far as like how like the journey of him going and succeeding, I think part of it had, I mean, obviously part of it is just his general ability of leadership. You know, you got to give credit to his capacity for creating loyalty. Like he's very good at if he wrote a book on how to establish loyalty within an organization, I'd buy 10 copies, because he was able and has been able to since gain the loyalty and commitment of his people without the pressure that sometimes could sometimes exist in Southwestern. And I'm talking about like the feeling of like, if I don't come back for another summer, I'm going to be shunned. Like he's good at he implemented the buying atmosphere of having people stay or not genuinely, but genuine. And so that created this choice for them to come back. And then he himself, who he is, attracted that.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's been a few thoughts I've had just in listening to some of the other interviews that, I don't know, I'll phrase it this way. It's like, there's so many people within all those get backs and all those meetings that we have over the course of the year that's like, yeah, my goal is to be a DSM, you know, or someday to get up there. And I'd be really curious to see what percentage of people actually put that out in the universe. What that percentage of people who actually become a DSM, right? But one thing I've realized, like just in life after the book field and kind of having some, like letting some of the dust settle and just life stuff, is like, what am I really called to, right? Like what's the purpose of my life? Some people are called to be a DSM with Southwestern. Others clearly are not. I don't think in that capacity I would have been the best DSM, just in part because I didn't have that same desire. And I think this kind of ties into some of what you and Nick have talked to some of the other interviewees about. It's like, whenever you get to a certain point, I hated some of the attitude, and I actually didn't really get a lot of this, like from Virgie whenever I decided to move on. But some of that negative attitude of like, hey, like if you move on from Southwestern, like that's like the worst possible decision you could ever make. My whole perspective of Southwestern as I was going through it was kind of using it as a springboard to get further, right? And finding that and exercising some of those muscles that inherently are not, my own personality. I said this before, I'm not like, I think inherently the best salesperson in the world, but there are certainly some skill sets that I developed just by being in that arena for 4 summers. And now it certainly helps just with running the business at the gym, helping my sister and brother-in-law with just some of their memberships and closing some of those sales. I know for a fact I wouldn't be as confident in that environment had it not been for 4 summers of selling books. And it's crazy how that life experience has translated into real world success. And not only that, but just helping my family with their own business. It's like, again, I'm just grateful for those 4 summers, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to help them in the capacity that I am now, if that makes sense.
No, and that does make sense. On that, that's actually a very interesting little tangent before because I do want to hear about what you're doing now and see, but on this, you mentioned something there. So this experience on this podcast has really made me realize a little bit more maybe what really makes Southwestern great. Because I used to think that it was the uniqueness of the training, and there is something to that. There's something to be said about Southwestern salespeople in general are a different kind of people. But the techniques of like self-talk and reading Augmentino and whatever. Like those aren't like unique to Southwestern. I mean, there's
Yeah.
other companies who talk about and read and so I think what made Southwestern amazing was it somehow created this culture of, I don't want to say superiority because that makes it sound arrogant. It was like of confidence, of true confidence, where you're like, if you did this, you can be confident. It's not the only way for you to gain confidence, but this is a very good way for you to learn how to be confident in yourself and what you do and believe in that. And the people that were around you helped you build that. And so that's what made it hard to leave. That's what made it hard
Yeah.
to move on, because you're like, because I did go to another company and they encourage positive self-talk, but it's not the same. The culture is not the same. The people
Right.
are not the same. And then now working where I work, it's very similar to that Southwestern part of like everybody's constantly working to improve the life of the people they work with and of themselves simultaneously. And so I missed that environment of like constant positive feedback.
Oh, it's the best. Like there's nothing like it.
Yeah. Now the company I work with at now has several book guys in it, and so there's that vibe in it, and it's the first time I found that again. But one of the things that I think Southwestern does so well is it creates this vision of yourself that you want to pursue, and because of that you want to do it with Southwestern, which makes it hard to leave. On the note about the DSMs, it's interesting because like you said Virgie, so Virgie is so different than Grant
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Creator. And
They're all so different.
Who's so different than Yvette, who was different than Mark Rao, who was different than Omar, Pedro, John Stewart, like, and even my brother, right? So like those are the most, there's tons more, but like just thinking about it that way, and it's like what made them that? And some of it I think has to do with luck too. And I'm not trying to take away from the merits and the
no, not at all. I
of
know what you mean
people,
though.
but some of it's like you were at the right place at the right time in the right summer,
Yeah.
or when that person left, and then that helped you.
Yeah.
Right? And
all of those people though, I would say that, and I think you touched on something here that's really interesting, is that attitude of like, are limiting the ebbs and flows of your emotions. And I think all of those people do that very well, having a high EQ where I'm not too bashful to admit that I didn't have that high of an EQ in some of those summers. And maybe it's a level of, I don't know if it's confidence or emotional development or what have you. I feel like some of us get to that peak or, you reach your full potential at some point in your life. I don't think I had reached that full potential, both from a confidence standpoint, from an emotional intelligence standpoint. In those summers that I was selling, frankly, I still think I'm growing as a person now. And I think it's crazy how sometimes you just catch people at different times of their life that have more development in certain areas. And as a result, they sell more books. And I think all of those things are, pointless if you don't have the work ethic. I think, you have to have that, the baseline of working hard in order to achieve those goals. But I do think there is something to be said for just internal development and kind of where someone's personality is at in those summers that they sell books. I'm not sure if this thought makes sense, but
well, but then that's interesting because like there's people that probably have worked harder than my brother at recruiting who aren't DSMs.
Right.
Like, so what is that success? I don't know. I don't know the answer to this, but like, what happened there? Like,
I don't know. I think part of it, like you said, is good timing and kind of, calling that person instead of that person to come check out an informational, and that first person is the one who ends up sticking around. Right. And then also too, is catching people in the time of the semester that works best for. I don't know. I'm coming up with all these hypotheticals, right? And they're, in hindsight, not everything is going to be 2020 in the recruiting sense, but it's really interesting to see how some people use their Southwestern experience to better themselves. And I remember Rao talking about this at one point. It's like, I think one of the common themes to like the kick-ass alumni that come back and talk at whatever, they say that Southwestern was really challenging at that point in their life. And since then they've pursued different endeavors that are equally or more challenging than what selling books provided them. I think the people who kind of use Southwestern as like the pinnacle of their experiences can sometimes tend to like fall off a little bit, where they're not pushing themselves as much. And I think part of that goes into what you were saying of the culture of like always being around people who are trying to push you and themselves to be better version of themselves.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that really exists in many places. But excuse me one second. I'm just going to run to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back.
Oh yeah, dude. Take your time. Take your time. We'll take a pause on that. If you're listening on, we're with Kevin Flavin from Eagle Blitz, for Summer Book Man. Stud. Just sharing some interesting perspectives on the recruiting and why people become DSMs and why others do not. So taking a quick bio break. Be right back.
And we back, baby.
Back.
Oh, we got a drink too. Yeah. Feel free.
What'd you get?
Just go. Just water.
Ah.
Feel free to just get whatever drinks or whatever you need. It's not. I mean, by the time when people are listening to this, if they do, then it's.
Oh, they'll listen.
No, yeah, that's right. Share the shit out of it. That's
Yeah.
good. Tangent. Hell yeah, tangent on this. I'm trying to get this to a point where there's like a decent enough following. Somebody might be interested to invest in it and sponsor us, but
yeah.
We'll see. Or a couple, like create like a little GoFundMe for that every alumni can throw $20 to, and we can like maybe get a little bit better production for it. But for now, it's just a fun way to do it.
No,
anyway.
For sure. Before we jump back into the conversation, I absolutely love this idea. Like, I think it's so much fun just to listen to some of the conversations that y'all have had so far. I mentioned this, I think, separately before we started recording, that it's like, it is so fun just to think back to that time of my life. And it's like, I think all of us would agree. We thought that was like the be all end all of like our lives at that point, when in reality, it's like, no, it's 4 summers of knocking on doors. Like it was so formational, all that, but just to think back of all the memories I have and what some of these stories have, jogged my memory of, it's pretty fun. So like kudos to you guys just for getting this started, because I think it's a great idea.
Well, and we can get into like how it got started later on if you want to hear about that story.
Yeah,
I've told it before on another episode, but it's always fun to go back to it.
Sure.
But so onto this conversation we were just having. So one of the things I was thinking, like as I was waiting for you, to the point I made, I'm trying to pick up the thread where we were, but the point I was thinking was the summer that 2016. So that was my last summer. Had a terrible summer, but it was my choice to come back, but I definitely got hardcore approached by different people to just say to help. And I wanted to help my brother build the force again, because kind of when he took over, Grant was out. And so he
I
had a
remember
choice.
that. Yeah.
And then he had a choice to like rebuild it or just jump ship to and just say, fuck it, I'm out.
Yeah.
He stuck around, wanted to rebuild it, had this vision for 2020 to become a DSM. He hit that goal. But it's interesting because that summer we were both full-timing. We had the same amount of names. We had the same amount of people. Yeah. We lived together. So we dialed together. I mean, that full spring, I was phoning when my brother was phoning. I was interviewing when my brother was interviewing. So there has to be something to his, because we were doing the same things on paper, right? Did you phone? Yep. The whole time? Yep.
Yeah.
It was on schedule, phoning, full-time schedule, following it, right?
100,
so how come
minutes for the week? Yeah.
the whole thing. So how come some people, like my brother, and like others that I was also full-timing with, both at UNL, with the force, or across the company, why did he succeed, right? That's the question that we were kind of going over. It's like, there's something about that kind of person that you were saying that was like this emotional, like this EQ.
Yeah.
And but more than that, maybe it's emotional intelligence, and then it's also it's interpersonal intelligence, as in like, you know,
Yeah.
but it's also intrapersonal intelligence. Something of it doesn't mean that they're better with people than you are or than I am. It just means that there's something about Southwestern and you at that time that just clicked. And I think that was that. And then also along, obviously, work ethic and hours put in implied, right?
I agree. To that point, though, I don't mean to interrupt. I just don't want
No,
to
you're
forget this thought. It's like, I think, for example, and maybe you're saying something similar. I don't think had I gotten recruited by someone else at A&M, I would have had nearly as good of a first summer and subsequent
Ooh.
summers than as compared to my leadership from Pedro. Like, I think that personal
Interesting.
connection that he and I had was hugely impactful in my first summer and the success I had from it. I don't want to say this
Ooh.
across the board, but like, I don't think if someone else would have recruited me, I would have had as good of a first summer, if that makes sense.
That's
So
an interesting thought.
yeah, and part of that, I think, is Pedro was very, very good about training us and getting us emotionally ready for the book field. But I also do think some personalities flock more to other personalities than others. And that's not to say that, you know, the person who doesn't recruit as many people is a bad person or is a bad recruiter. It's just, I think we tend to flock to certain personalities, and as a whole, that is probably why certain people are really good at recruiting and then become DSMs someday. You know,
Right.
I'm thinking of like the different personality types, and not so much like Myers-Briggs stuff or getting too analytical about it, just more so certain qualities that people find attractive, not like romantically, but just from a
Yeah.
professional standpoint, that there are certain things that I know if I was following someone or, you know, following a leader, I would want to make sure that that leader has specific qualities. Otherwise, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not vibing with this dude or this girl. I got to get out of here, kind of thing. Is that? I'm not sure if
Yeah.
that thought is making sense, but
Yeah. That is a very interesting thought. The way I'm thinking about it is, oh, this is cool. Dude, good. See, this is why I love this freaking thing.
Oh, I know.
That's why I love doing this podcast.
Yeah, it's great.
So, because this is into like more like psychological
Mhm.
conversation over not just with Southwestern, but just in general. So, like, I'm trying to think, for example. So Steve recruited me. Steve sold like 3,700 units his first summer.
Mhm.
Good, decent first summer. He made
Yeah.
like 17 grand or something. Number something. He made the, you know, book, went to Sizzler, the whole thing. So his manager, Ryan Malm, was not a great dude, much more chill dude. I was actually, in fact, not the type of person that you would think would sell books, because he's just so chill that
Yeah.
like you couldn't
I know
imagine
the
him
type.
like, and he didn't sell many books, but he recruited Steve, right? So what I'm trying to say is like Steve's work ethic was, his success came because the personality of that manager and his were so opposite that he had to his personality also included the ability to like do it on his own and
Yeah.
find his own way. And so that met with everything was the right place, the right time. So it's not even like a
Yeah.
certain kind of personality. It's just when your particular personality lines up with that situation well, that's what you do. That's why you do.
Yeah,
well.
it's like it complements that other person's, not weaknesses, I want to say, but what they're looking to gain, so to speak.
But then here's the thing, like if I didn't have Steve, if a person like me had Ryan, I would have failed. Or not failed, but I wouldn't have sold as well. I needed someone like Steve for me to succeed.
Yep.
But Steve needed someone like Ryan for him to, so his strength was innovation. And so because Ryan wasn't really doing much, then Steve had to kind of figure it out, so he was good at that with being coachable, but also like, whereas I had someone to look up to. So I hit the week I hit 700 units, he hit more. You see what I'm saying? Like I was watching, I was shooting for more, right?
Yeah.
Whereas he didn't have that from his manager. He outsold his manager by a lot.
Yeah, it was more organic, is what you're saying.
So it's not even like a particular kind of personality does well at Southwestern. It's just when the personality of that person, introverted, extroverted, go getter, not motivated, whatever person meets the environment that they need to use their best weapon to thrive, right?
Bingo. That is so well said. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think you kind of encapsulate that whole idea really well, because for me it was like, I think part of the reason why Pedro and I jive so well, both of us are very family oriented, and I think a lot of our just emotional purposes, were lined up with family, and I think as a result of that, that's why I was able to I don't want to say confide necessarily, but identify more with him, and as a result was able to pick his brain on certain sales situations during the summer, but then also in, the weeks leading up to the summer was able to get some good, feedback and input from him that he was talking my language more, that is another way to put it. He was able to phrase things in the right way that impacted me emotionally in a good way.
And see, and if Pedro had recruited me, I don't know if I would have sold as much as Steve, because Pedro didn't sell a lot of books. Like the thing that, because think about, like, I don't know if you know much about how I got recruited, but I got recruited the Wednesday before sales school.
Yeah, I remember you telling the story from another podcast.
So I wasn't trained. I had no parent work, none of that shit. And so like someone like Pedro would have, or maybe I would have sold more units. I don't know. Like that's the interesting thing.
Isn't that weird?
Like, cause he would have spoke Spanish, so my parents would have been like, whoa, if I would have got recruited earlier, I'm a big family guy, so maybe I would have connected with that. But then the question is, would I have done better than under Pedro? Two questions. Would I have done better under Pedro or Steve? And does it matter? Would I have done well anyway? Like,
a deeper level of that question would have been, would you have come back for a second, third, etc. summer under Pedro versus Steve? This is all speculation, right? But it is fun to think about, because you don't know under different leadership styles how you would flourish or not, right? Because it's I think there's, going back to that flock mentality of where personalities gravitate to, I think there are certainly those that I would have done well under versus not. So it's anyway, just a fun fun thought process.
Or like, by the way, so I always want to say this just randomly, so that way if someone's listening, and we've mentioned this before, mad respect to anybody, that we're not trying to talk bad about anybody. This is not the
not
we're
at
just
all
speculating. Okay. That being said, I have high respect for Mark Rao and who he is and his accomplishment, right? But if he would have been my DSM, I would have left.
Oh, that's funny, because that was someone that I respected a bit. Like, I actually talked to Rao earlier this week, as a matter of fact. So
stud.
Yeah, freaking
his
awesome.
Personality and mine do not work well.
Yeah,
and that's okay. I mean, that doesn't make me or him a bad or good person.
Oh, no.
I
know what you mean.
Yeah, we just don't get along.
That was someone that as a going into my first summer, someone that I really admired, frankly, because from a business standpoint, he, I think, grasped the attention of everyone he needed to be successful in his position. And what I mean by that is, like, I remember at the parent coffee or whatever it was, whenever we all got together before the summer started, my parents were there, and I remember them both being really impressed with Mark Rao and kind of speaking my parents' language to appease whatever concerns they had about me going to sell books, which I'll say this much: my parents were very confident and excited for me to go sell. So it wasn't a hard sell for them to be on board. But I do remember them both being impressed with Mark Rao's professionalism, his sense of humor, among other qualities that kind of gave them the peace of mind that it's like, okay, Kevin's working for a good company. Like, there's good people on this ship. We're comfortable with him going to sell books and pursuing this to the full extent. So I go ahead.
Oh, well, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's not the Mark Rao and I wouldn't get along. It's just that I would find a harder time to connect with him. And so because of that, but like, here's the thing, my parents were very okay with Southwestern, like for the most part. At first they were like, obviously, like any other parent would be like, wait, you're doing what? And remember, this is Wednesday. Like, so
4 days before sales school.
And so I tell my dad, hey, I tell him I was going to go. I didn't even know how long we were going to go for. I didn't know we were going to leave. And so I called Steve and I told him, and then I called my dad. My dad said, if you come back before August, then don't come home. I'm going to raise it.
I loved that story. Yeah. That is so badass.
Yeah. And so my dad's a fucking stud. But the thing is, like, if my parents would have met Mark Rao, they would not have been impressed. I just been like, okay, that's just the guy that works at the company. Like, it's just there. And not that, because Mark Rao is super impressive. Like, he's super impressive too. And so, like, it was just different. Like the core perspective of ours is just different. And so whereas like Yvette was just a lot more like chill. She was more of a bro. And so that was so cool for me because I'm like, I can kick it with this chick. Like, and she's 40 or whatever. At the time she was like 36, right? And I was 20. And so it's like, or whatever. And it was just a different friendship. For example, like I love Grant Greeter. Grant Greeter is a great guy, but I've never been tight with Grant. Like I if he needed me to help him move or watch his kids, I'm there, right? Or whatever. But it's never been one of those things where it's like I've never cried in front of Grant or something like that. It's never been like that kind of connection. It's always been like, I actually look up to you, and you anything you say, I take in gold because you're a successful human being, right? It's more like a coaching type than like a bro, you know?
No, I'm with you. And again, I think that goes back to which personalities we flock to more.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So anyway, and hell, I find it now, like just in whether it's, I don't know, dating or, you know, just getting a chance to meet new people at the gym. And maybe this is where we kind of shift gears into what I'm doing now, but
let's do it.
Cool. So yeah, high level stuff. I'm basically working with 2 book guys for my corporate job, work in commercial insurance, and we do employee benefits specifically. But after, I guess this would have been January of 2018. So I just celebrated my 3-year anniversary with the company. Started working with 2 former book guys, and they are the producers basically for our division of the company. And was working somewhat under them in business development. And you know, my whole mentality with it was I was looking to get into more corporate sales, and finding that balance of the energy that you see with Southwestern, but also marrying that skill set with some of the professionalism that's required for a corporate sales job, if that makes sense.
Yes, I understand what you mean.
You know, and trying to make that jump into the corporate sales side. Full disclosure, did not do very well in that corporate sales job. It was a lot of sink or swim situations where it's like I'm talking to HR directors and CFOs as a green guy right out of school at 23 years of age, right? So it's like I'm trying to have intelligent conversations about insurance when I just got hired and don't even know how to like explain what a deductible is, right? So it's like it's hard to be confident in that environment. And I'm talking about this more in hindsight, that like, because at the time I was like, let's go, like let's try and book as many meetings as possible. But I think looking back, it has allowed me some time to get some clarity as to why I didn't achieve what I wanted to in that position. But the beauty of this is coming out of that sales position, they had a vacancy as an analyst role, which again, I studied math in school, so certainly have that skill set that is required to be an analyst. So they were able to, you know, give me a lateral shift to a different side of the company. And now, you know, I'm firing on all cylinders, helping out more of our current clients, and, you know, able to use a different skill set to be of value to my company. So it's that part of it is a great thing. Separately, this was kind of a neat story as to how it came to fruition. So we were out in Galveston, south of Houston, on the beach. We do a family vacation every year, which while I was selling books, I missed all 4 summers. But we go to the beach as a family each summer. And this year it was really cool. So again, I have 4 sisters. I have 3 older, 1 younger, and the oldest is only one of us that's married. So she and her husband were down there. They were at the time expecting their first. We now have a beautiful niece who's probably it is the cool. I'm so excited for you to become an uncle, because like it is the coolest experience. Yeah, it's so badass.
It's because like you get to like hang out with like them, and then I was on like, oh, here you go, dude. Dad.
Yeah,
clean up that diaper.
Yeah, our niece is like, she's the happiest baby. Like I can't even put into words how excited I am for them. But at the time for this, and we gotta check in whenever Danny and Aisha have their baby, because I know it's going to be a fun time for you too. But we were down in Galveston. I was talking to my brother-in-law. You know, they've had their gym. I had been a member at their gym for a while in the months before that. And they were like, listen, like we're just, because of COVID, we're just in a tough situation. And I'm like, well, put me in, coach. Like, what can I do to help? Like,
throw me a jersey.
Let's
give me
go.
The ball.
So they were just like, well, on the sales side, you can definitely help with just making some phone calls and getting some new prospective members in the studio. And I'm like, it's got my name written all over it. Let's do it. So
It's Kevin
from
Flavin's phone, baby.
That's right. Let's go. So I hop on the phone starting, I think, in July. Fast forward a couple months, they had a vacancy for a studio manager position at one of their 3 studios. And I was like, here's the deal. If y'all can work around my corporate schedule, I will gladly do what I need to do to make it work at the gym, with the understanding that my full-time job comes first, right? And that was just the dialogue that we had, just for, transparency's sake. I'm like, I'm not going to sacrifice my full-time job to, show up at the gym. But it works out well enough because I'm typically there first thing in the morning to, get people checked in for their class. I'm helping, we have like a free week trial. So we give people a chance to try out the classes before they commit to a full membership. So part of my job is greeting those folks, making sure that they're acquainted with how the classes run. And then from there, over the course of the week, selling them a membership. So meanwhile, all of this is going on during a pandemic. So it's like, the one thing that I have the utmost respect for, the kids who sold books this summer is like, they did all this and did really well from, the looks of things during a pandemic. And that is like one of the toughest objections I've learned to overcome, because there's no answer to it. It's like, okay, well, you're scared about COVID. Like, I guess we'll circle back in a few months whenever you want to come into the gym. Right. Yeah. So it's a combination of learning to overcome that, being patient with people, but also like saying like, hey, like your fitness is not going to wait for COVID, right? Like you got to take that into your own hands, and whether it's you doing stuff at home or whatever. So yeah, from there, they hired me, I guess, in September, October, and things have been going strong ever since then. I think we're up like 33% at the gym that I'm at, which is like fun to say, just from a sales perspective, that like I've had a direct impact in some of that growth.
Yeah.
And like the other 2 studios are growing too. And that's not just me. We've had other pieces in place to keep growing as like a team of studios. But outside of that, this is gonna catch a lot of people off guard, because I haven't broadcasted this too much, but on the side, I've been DJing a lot as well, which has been a lot of fun. So my old roommate, who now lives in Austin, he was kind of big into the electronic scene, and he kind of wrote me in. I think this was 2 4th of July's ago. So now I DJ on Saturdays at the gym, which is a lot.
Let's go.
So like that part of it has been great. Yeah, and like I've said that to so many people, and they're like, "Really? Like Kevin Flavin, like DJing?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's become more of like a creative outlet. Just
yes.
Just I don't know. I never thought I'd get into this scene at all, but certainly from a music side, it's allowed me a chance, which is, I'll say this much, like I'm very much a creature of habit. If I find music, movies, TV shows that I like, I stick to them. This has been a fun way to kind of get outside my comfort zone with listening to new music and finding ways to like get more creative with that. So DJing it's been awesome. So
do you have a favorite Latino artist? If not, may I recommend?
And there's actually a Cuban duo of it's 2 beautiful girls. It's, I think, Pauza, if I remember correctly. It's Pauza, and they're not a very well-known duo, but part of the reason why I like them so much is that they're both really attractive. But
why not?
They have some really good music. But it's been a cool outlet. And
dude, that is so cool.
Yeah, I talked to Austin Souders one time, and he's like, "What the hell? Like, what? Like, when did this happen?" And go ahead.
You got any mixes to share?
Kind of, yeah. Again, this has been more like under the radar. I've seen a lot of, and I'll share this insight with you. I've seen a lot of posts on like Instagram. It's like, keep your victories private, so like they're that much more impactful whenever like they shine through. So yeah, I mean, I've been DJing for probably a year and a half now, but it's like it's fun now because like I can do it professionally, like at the gym, and like I get paid for it. So it's I never thought it would happen. No, like I haven't really done a lot of recordings. It's just more so on the fly. So I enjoy it. It's a cool hobby. And then I think the one thing, and this is actually something I was excited to talk about in the midst of like things I've learned from Southwestern, to kind of shift gears here, but it's like the one quality I think that, or more just the mindset that I've developed and maintained over the years has been like just embracing the sucky part of your learning development in whatever capacity that looks like. because like
Ooh.
it's amazing how when you have a good attitude about like the suck and kind of maintaining like your end goal, it's amazing how much more fun that journey is. Because like with DJing, man, I can't even tell you like how terrible some of those first mixes were. Like trying to figure out how to, time it right and, crossfade the volume and all that stuff. But it's like, through all that, I was doing it out of just love for the music and because I enjoy just the craft. And as a result, it's like, because I had simply an end goal of mine and like just trying to get better at that particular craft, I was able to get through that sucking just because it was fun. And so this year I'm trying to learn how to play guitar. So it's like, it's a similar thing. Like I'm just like trying to just get through, the terrible sound of, trying to play those chords and they sound awful. Right.
Yeah.
And, but having fun with it and not beat myself up so much. And I think that that comment in particular is really important because in selling books, I would beat myself up all the time. I'm my own biggest critic. So it really is a shame in hindsight that it's like, man, Kevin, why were you beating yourself up so much? But now it's like, instead of taking myself so seriously, I'm trying to just dial it back a little bit and just have some fun with it. So
that's dope, bro.
thanks, man. No, it's been a fun COVID because, I'll share this with you. During most of quarantine, Zach, he got laid off and he was my old roommate, got laid off in March and he was the one who taught me how to DJ. But for, I guess, 5 or 6 months, all we would do is just like hang out in the apartment. I would get my work done from like 8 until 5. And then from like 5 until 11, we would just chill in the apartment and like mix music and just have a good time. So it was just like, it was a fun thing, a fun hobby, to develop and then have something to show for it at the end of quarantine is fun. So
that's so cool that I was just having this conversation with a friend, and this is I think we could still tie this to Southwestern, but it applies to your DJing or your guitar playing. There's a point when you get good at something, not the best, not like you're not doing it to be the best. Maybe
you're proficient at it, basically.
But then it becomes a joy. That part of the Augmentino quote where it's like when a man does something well, it becomes a pleasure to perform, and when it becomes a pleasure to perform, it becomes habit or whatever. Like that part of arrival of a craft or a skill that you've been working on is so cool because it goes from just you achieve this base level of confidence, which is like, I can do this well, right? Better than someone who starts today. I can confidently say I'm better than them, but not better than the greats. Maybe someday, but like I'm good. And so when you go do it and you perform, it's such a pleasure. It's such a release.
A thrill.
It happens when when my brother and I play soccer at like 6:30 in the morning with some guys, and it's fun because they're all decently good. Like I think my brother and I probably are better than most of them because we've just been play forever. But there's these white dudes, right? But they're good. They're good. Like it's good enough that you're not you don't feel bad about passing it to them like they're gonna lose the ball. But the whole point I'm trying to make is that like it's fun to play. Like people are like, you wake up at 6:30 to play soccer, sounds awful. It's like, no, because I'm getting up to do something that is such a pleasure to wake up to, and I get done and it was fun. I made good passes. I had really good shots. I had really good blocks. I worked and I competed, and the scoreboard doesn't matter. I didn't win a trophy or anything, but it's just the performance of like
the craft
of the craft. And that's what makes it art, right? That's what makes it, because it's like, I can't do that again because it was in the universe. That pass I made was only going to be that one time. We can't repeat that if we tried, but it happened and I meant it and it did and it worked and it can't be recreated. Yeah. Like it looked like the professionals when they do it, you know, obviously they're way better than I am, but like that pass was that good, and so it's, or whatever.
No, I'm with you.
It's cool. It's such a fucking amazing feeling.
No, I get what you mean. It's such a release of like, yes, like this is why I love doing what I do. And there's moments of that when you're mixing music, when you make a transition exactly how you wanted it to sound or, whatever.
Yeah.
For me, it's like what I've enjoyed about DJing is I've been able to maintain the idea of like, I am always looking to improve with this craft.
Yeah.
But even if I'm not there like perfectly, I'm still enjoying it in the process. And I want to shed, there was a comedian, Tom Segura. I'm not sure if you listen to him at all, but
I've met Tom Segura, bro.
have you really?
Yeah.
So no, he has a bit, and I freaking love some of his stories, by the way. There was one part that kind of showed me the human side of Tom Segura that I really appreciate. And he said, he has a lot of these moments in his stand-up routines where he'll shed a little light on like life stuff. Oh, that's badass. Where'd you meet him?
It's my profile picture. He was here in Lincoln.
Oh, that's cool.
He's wearing the Husker shirt. See that? Yeah, dude.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a good time.
His one of his quotes though is like, I sincerely believe this, that if you have a dream, the pursuit of that dream will be fulfilling, even if you don't necessarily achieve it, right? And I think that like it's so true in all walks of life. If it's a sales goal or if it's a a musical goal of some kind, you're able to slowly work towards that dream of whatever it is. And I think that has certainly rang true in my life since I've left the book field of like, and I go back to this comment I made earlier of like, you want to get through that sucking and do it for the love of the game. And at some point, like you'll have something to show for it. Right.
Yeah.
But I think the difference between a lot of book people and I'll say the rest of society, not to say the rest of society is bad, but one quality that a lot of book people have is they're able to get through that sucking period and enjoy that process. And as a result, they're able to have more to show for it on the backside of it than others might, and I think
mentally too.
Yeah, mentally too. It's that part of it has been, I think, a fun realization as the years have gone on. It's like, I don't think I would have had the same amount of patience for myself in pursuing whatever this is had I not sold books and have learned the importance of focusing on the process and not like the result. Because it's, again, I go back to my hobbies of, whether it's DJing or playing guitar or whatever, that I'm not the best DJ in the world, nor am I the best guitarist, but I'm definitely enjoying just what I'm doing because it's a fun creative outlet outside of what I do 8 to 5, right? And it's just it's a fun way to express myself and find some more of an outlet. But anyway, I know we got to shift gears. I know we just hit the 2 p.m. Like I want to.
We need to do the pony story.
Yeah, the pony story. Yeah. I might have a couple, but before I get into it, I do have to share probably the funniest sit down of all 4 summer selling books. You're like, this is going to catch you off guard. So this is my second summer in Georgia. I am selling outside of Griffin, which is a south suburb of Atlanta. And at this point, this was the first 6 weeks. I ended up moving to Northwest Georgia the second half of my summer. So I moved, I had 2 different turfs that year. So the craziest part about the story is I met this dad, I think on the Tuesday, it was a Saturday that I sat down with him. They were my last house. So it was a Tuesday that I met him. And he was like, yeah, you'll have to come back when my wife's here. And I think if I remember right, I think his name was Lloyd. I don't remember her name. We'll call her Cindy just for sake of the story.
Yeah.
And I do remember they had either like an 8th or 9th grade daughter. She was like going into high school or something like that. And anyway, I'm like in dire need of a sit down. It's like 9:20 and I'm like, I remember Lloyd. He said like, come back whenever. I'm like, well, all right, we'll figure this out. So I go knock, I pull in the driveway. They're cool. Like they walk me in the door. So keep in mind, we're in Georgia. So a lot of people in that area are University of Georgia Bulldog fans. So I would say one of the most common dogs I saw that summer was a Bulldog. So this rings true here. They have a Bulldog that was absolutely massive. And then they had another dog. It was a pug. So I'm going through, I'm not a huge fan of pugs. I'm going through my, through my entire intro, demonstration, etc. Dad lights up a cigarette, always a good sign. Cindy is like, she apparently had just given up smoking or something. So she goes to sit down by the fireplace. I said, man. So I'm going through, I think at this point, I'm like into my price buildup or something like that. Meanwhile, Cindy looks over at the pug, which was, paint the picture for you. There was a bulldog sitting underneath the coffee table, massive son of a gun, and then this pug sitting over on the bed by the back door. All of a sudden, Cindy is like, huh, Pugsley, which is the name of the pug, looks dead.
Damn it.
Pugsley looks dead is what she said. So
Oh no.
then like a couple more seconds go by. She's like, wait, Pugsley's not breathing.
Oh my God. Their dog fucking died?
The dog died. So the dad goes
On Saturday night, like
on Saturday night,
9:30.
So the dad goes over, Lloyd. Mom is kind of getting a little like hysterical. Like the dog had just died. So like I can see how she'd be getting a little emotional.
Right.
The dad goes over, tries to like touch it, and basically the whole dog, he tried to flip it over, like all of its legs just roll over with it. So like it had gone stiff at this point, like rigor mortis. Like,
Oh,
let's just say that dog had been there a while, and they just never realized it had died. So anyway, this is probably the best. That dad didn't give a shit. He opens up the back screen door and he literally lifts up the dog in the bed all in one fell swoop and places it on the back porch. He's just like, I'll take care of it tomorrow. Go ahead, son.
Oh my God.
So my immediate thought.
The mom's like, fuck.
Yeah. Like,
oh my God.
Meanwhile, my immediate thought is they didn't teach us this in sales school.
Like, what do we do?
Yeah. I'm like, and you got to have some human touch here of like, not being so selfish to try and close the sale. You know, I was like, hey guys, like I want to be sensitive to y'all's like family situation here. Do you want me to continue? Do you want me to hit the road? I'm like, at that point, like selling books is not my priority, right? Because they're like, kind of in a weird emotional state.
That is a weird place to be.
Yeah. And I'm just like, all right, like I don't know how to go about this. So anyway, they end up not buying. But you know, the funniest part of that was hands down the dad just being like, I'll just take care of this shit tomorrow. Go on.
Epic.
Oh my God.
So what was this about math again? Like,
yeah. I'm like, I don't know how to close this family.
Dude.
Like it was no good way to do this.
When my dog died, I bawled. Like,
oh yeah. And like, that's why I had that initial reaction of like, do y'all want me to keep going? Do y'all want me to hit the road? Like this, like y'all buying or not doesn't make a difference to me. Like, I just want to
make sure you're cool.
So, yeah, and like they appreciated that for sure, but it, like, and I was being sincere. It's not like I was, you know, trying to, you know, close the sale just for the sake of the sale. But yeah, I had to share that story because that's
crazy. I had not heard that before.
Yeah, not. I
only realized the dog was dead when we were sitting down.
Yeah,
and they did not buy.
No, then they didn't buy.
No, usually it ends with, and then they bought. No,
shifting gears to you know some sales now. So going to my first summer, I had I think collectively in all of Southwestern's history, the accumulative wealth of the counties that I sold in was probably like the lowest of all salespeople. Just because I worked in some very low income areas, which was like
Mississippi, bro.
Mississippi, yeah.
Like it's the lowest income in it's that in Arkansas.
In the Union, that's right. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going through Water Valley, Mississippi. I'm probably in week maybe 7 or 8 of my summer. So like things are plugging along. Like I've hit the pace setter a few times up to that point. So like I was doing okay. Granted, a lot of like my sales were weak, so it was like I had I think a good closing percentage at the end of the summer once I finally delivered. But anyway, I'm going through my week, and I remember it was this Saturday. You know, I was struggling to try and find just some cash. You know, like some people who were willing to just put some money down, because at that point in the summer, you know, you're going to have not as much time for people to save up for the final balance of the end of the summer. So it's like kind of that make or break time frame where it's like either I'm gonna, you know, find some cash or I got to change turf so I can like actually close some sales. Mm-hmm. So go through my Saturday. I'm trying to find like, you know, some more well-off areas in my turf. Meet this grandmother who's like super positive. She's like, hey, like I don't have any kids, but check next door. My daughter and her husband are like very education conscious. They have a daughter going into 9th grade, so check them out. I'm like, cool. Don't think much of it. I missed them that day. I think this was earlier in the week, but on that Saturday, I drive up and go to knock on the front door. Dad comes around the side, is reading my like sticker on the side of my car. And I don't know about you, but most times whenever someone sees like education or whatever, they're like, I don't know. There was always like, I'm not interested. Thanks for stopping by. This dude was like, so what are you doing? Like, what's up? Invites me in, and I'll never, Casey and let's see, trying to think of the wife's name. Was it Michelle? I think it was Michelle. Yeah, Casey, Michelle. So sit down with them. Their daughter is going to be a freshman in high school, and she's like very sharp. She like is very like academically just very with it. So I'm like, well, like, what are you looking to do in high school? Like, do you want to go to college and all that stuff? She's like, oh yeah, like definitely want to shoot to go to Ole Miss or like a good state school or something like that.
It's a good kid.
Yeah, like her parents are like kind of backing her up. Like, no, she wants to be the valedictorian of the high school. Like that's her goal. I'm like, damn, okay, like this is
down.
Cool. Yeah. So this family lived in probably one of the nicer houses in this community. So I'm like, they definitely have some cash, but more focused on the sale at this point. And anyway, just sitting down with them, running through, the 6 books. And bear in mind, she's a freshman. Casey, the dad, asks, like, do you have anything for SAT or ACT prep? This is where I was very transparent. Some people might frown on this just from a overall sales like perspective. I said, Casey, like, I'm happy to show that to you, but truthfully, like, Carly's not going to need this until she's like a junior or a senior. But I'll show it to you if you want, because like, truthfully, like most people most people don't even focus on their SAT or ACT until they're a junior or senior. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I'm
also her name was Carly.
Yeah.
Oh, the sharpest kid I ever met that I ever sold books to, single mom. Her name is Carly.
That's funny.
Yeah, and so it's like very. Honestly, when you said she was trying to be valedictorian, that's who I thought of. I was like, oh, it sounds.
Is
like
that right?
Yeah, it sounds like Carly that I sold to.
Funny.
That's funny. Okay.
Yeah. That's cool. So anyway, I run through the sit down, and bear in mind, like I'm still a first year, so like in my head, I'm trying. I had not sold, I don't think, any 6 books that summer, because it's like I'm just trying to piece together some sales with lower total costs and just build my customer list up really high so I can actually close some sales by the end of the summer. So 6 book plus CEA, and I'm like, it's a total of, I don't even know,
70 units.
Well, it's like 1,000. I was looking for the total price. I had to do some math like on my approach pad, like $1,050, something like that. Yeah. And I was, I did my normal close. Best part is, I deliver the books my summer. That way, you can break up the balance, whatever. And he's like, well, do you take plastic? I said, yeah. He said, well, shoot, yeah. I'll just go ahead and throw it all in the American Express.
You're like,
and yeah, I'm like, what? So, because like up to that point, like the most I had probably
collected. Never seen that.
Yeah, most I had probably collected in any sit down was maybe $300 or $400. So I'm like, that was obviously when my, belief barrier was broken. Was like, okay, people have cash, people are willing to, invest in some money. So fast forward to the end of the summer, I actually run into them with my roommate, Matthew Bull, at Walmart in Oxford. And like their reputation had preceded them, because like I told them about how positive they were about like what I was doing. They were posting on Facebook, like saying, hey, like if this kid like stops at your door, be sure to listen. He's a really nice guy. Like they were just like a really, really solid family.
Yeah. So, you got to love those. That's like, those are the real ponies. Those are the real ponies. Yeah.
And anyway, I run into them at Walmart with my roommate. As they're walking out, we're walking in, and I'm like, Washington's like, what's up? How are y'all? And I remember Matthew, my roommate, being like, oh, so like these are the Washingtons, because like I had told their stories so often that like he knew who they were. So anyway, I'm like, well, I'll catch y'all at the end of the summer. So when I fast forwarded, like this part of my summer was really tough, because my first year I was a little more ignorant to why people might think Southwestern was a scam. Like I wasn't, I was kind of so like laser focused on just selling, and like didn't have quite the realization of like, oh, like people are going to be sketched out by what I'm doing, if that makes sense. And I don't know if that was just
Yeah.
because of like the good training I had or whatever, but there was one family I remember, it was Terry Allen was the guy's name, who earlier in the summer had like, he had bought, I think like the 4 or the 6 book set for his son, then like tracked me down, like asked me to give his check back, which like I hadn't cashed yet, and was like, you're a scam, like this is ridiculous.
Oh no.
So like, of course, after that experience, and this was, I think I ran into the Washingtons either, I think it was after I met Terry Allen. But what was so, like, I had a 0 day that day because like he tracked me down first thing in the morning, got his check back, and I'm like, you know, do people think I'm a scam? Like, what's the deal? So by the end of the summer, you know, I talked to them. I said, you know, I really appreciate y'all's, you know, posts. I had run into some issues, and like before I could even finish that statement, they were like, was it Terry Allen who, you know, was trying to spread some like ill will about you? And I was like, yeah, that's exactly who it was. And they were like, yeah, we caught wind of that. We were trying to like, you know, tone that down, saying that you're legit and all that stuff. You're just trying to pay for school. And like, the cool part of the story is like, I think Michelle and I are friends now on Facebook, and like, you know, we've joked some just on different posts that she's put on Facebook about like Common Core math or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you know, those books help with some of that stuff, you know, just tongue in cheek, humor. But you know, that one was such a cool story because
That's amazing.
that was my best day. That was the first time I had broken 100 units. I think I had 150 units that day, my first summer, which is that's for a first year.
Yeah, it's a good day.
So
that's pretty good. Yeah, that's amazing.
So, you know, I was vibing from that point on and was able to finish my summer pretty well. But in large part, it was because they were, you know, trying to watch my 6 in their community, because he was, I think, on the school board. She was really successful. Again, Carly was like, well, no, she was a good athlete. She was a good student. So like people knew the Washingtons in that area, and they were like trying to, you know, like accept me into their community and say like, hey, Kevin's like really, you know, spreading some goodwill here. Just listen to him.
You gotta love those people.
I know. And it was just like, they were so gracious for what they were doing, or for what I was doing. And, you know, it was cool just in wrapping up my summer. I wasn't able to catch Casey. I caught Michelle and Carly at whenever I delivered. And of course, you plan out your deliveries so your coolest customers are your last ones. So they were my last
of course.
delivery.
They cook for you.
Yeah. But that was such a fun day, because, you know, they spread some more goodwill within the community. And I'm so bummed because like, I think in that moment I had just realized like I had sold whatever, like 75 units to a family, completely forgot to take a picture and like post to Facebook with them because I was like just so jazzed.
Yeah.
But no, they were so cool. And then my third summer, this was just more of the hilarity of the situation. I remember I sold, I think it was probably like an 80 unit package, because they bought the entire kids library and I think a 4-book set. So whatever that unit value is, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I remember I was listening to the Bill Zizzy CD in my car as I was pulling up to this house, and it was the story of like, I don't know how familiar you are with this like advanced sales CD, but he's like,
very.
He's like, you're not going to let your sister out, do you? Are you? And he's like, all right, no, just go ahead and sign me up for the whole thing.
So then she gave me $900.
$900. Yeah. So anyway, like I remember shutting off my car as like at that part in the CD, and I was like, this family's going to buy.
Yeah.
And anyway, like I walk up to their door, and this is what sucks. Like I didn't have as much of a like personal connection with this family as I did with the Washingtons, but like they were still really positive. I remember one of my answers to the objection that summer was like, well, one thing some parents have been doing is they've just been throwing on the credit card and then just like taking care of the balance later, just as like
free, yeah.
Just buy and worry about it another time. Yeah. And I remember I said that, and the wife kind of like made an eye towards the husband of like, that actually sounds pretty good. Let's go ahead and do it. So she like ran inside, got the credit card. They threw, you know, another $800 or $900 on their credit card. And I had all the books with me. So that was fun just to deliver like on the spot right there.
Boom, bitch,
yeah,
$800.
Yeah, the fact that it was like at the same moment I had been listening to that advanced sales CD with Bill Zizzy, which I think is like most people's favorites just because of like, like some of his stories and that. but no,
Yeah.
that was definitely one of my favorites. But
I think that's the advanced sales. It's not even like an advanced, like they never talk about anything specifically strategically and how to, they're just, it's more about their mentality and what
their
how they
their
perceive.
delivery is just like
Amazing,
whatever.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the best.
Whereas like Run Alfred's like to me was the best advanced sales because I was like, oh, like, but the Bill Zizzy one is just like it's the classic. It's
Well,
like it's the Forrest Gump. You know, you gotta watch it. You gotta listen to it. Yeah.
What I loved about like him and Dave Rosen together, they had like some technical stuff, but there was so much of just like just go and have fun. Go meet people where they're at. Like as long as you're cool, they're cool. And
enjoy the job, enjoy the thing,
like,
enjoy this experience. Yeah.
I remember like my first and second summer, I was just so laser focused on just like my demos and like my intro and all that stuff. And like my third and fourth summer, it was more about like actually connecting with people and like having a bit more fun with the families. And like I remember my third summer in Indiana, I worked in Scottsburg, which is north of where I was living. So it's about an hour north of Louisville. And I lived in Jeffersonville, which is right across the river. So worked in Scottsburg for the first part. And then from there, this was kind of a pony day, not so much a pony story, because I'm looking at the time. I know we got about 10 minutes left, but I had to share this. So the reason I was able to do so well, this was on the 4th of July. So
everybody's home.
Yeah, it gets better. So what happened was I had moved out of Scottsburg, moved into Jeffersonville, into more of the suburbs. But I went back to Scottsburg for the 4th of July because I was going to just go catch up with everyone who I missed earlier in the summer and have an all-day gravy. Yeah. The best part about this was it was raining on the 4th of July. So no one was going anywhere. All right. So I go back in and like basically everyone was vying for me in Scottsburg. It was great. So I don't think I got a door answered until like 9:30 because everyone on a holiday, you know, if it's raining, they're going to be sleeping in for sure. Mm-hmm. So like I couldn't catch anyone until 9:30. But from 9:30 until like 4:30, I was just on a tear. Like I think I had like 11 or 12 sits that day and like 9 or 10 customers, and I didn't hear my first no until like 4:30 or 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And it was one of those days where you're just like, you're jamming. And the best part was everyone had seen me on Facebook. They're like, oh, you're the book kid. Like, we're glad you finally stopped by.
Yes, so, dude. I was my first summer, Wellsville, New York, dude.
Oh, man.
You couldn't miss. You couldn't miss.
Like, you got the Midas touch. Everything you're touching is turning.
Oh, my God.
So,
yeah.
So, like I walked into my first 5 houses that day. They all bought. So
boom.
Like already had hit steak by like noon. I'm like, this is the best 4th of July ever.
Yeah.
Like, God bless America, man. So I'm jamming. I get to 4:35 p.m. and then I'm sitting down with this one family and they're like, I don't think we're gonna do it today. And it was that moment when you're just in the flow of, you're like shocked. You're like,
are you serious?
Not gonna buy? Like, do you know
everybody's buying
just today? Like, your 3 neighbors next door all bought these. Like I was jamming, and it was just one of those moments where you finish the day and you're like, this is how it's done. Like this is how this job is supposed to be done. Like, I don't even think I got to my 30 demos that day.
No.
But like at that point, you're like, I connected with some great families. Like I served them very, very well. And then one of my other best days that year was actually it was the anniversary, so Craig Soder, I don't know how well you know him. It was actually, I think, his first birthday after he had passed away. And like, he and I had just developed a good relationship that semester right before he passed. And, it was kind of like a little hat tip to him when I realized, whenever I tallied up my units for the day, I'm like, this is my best day ever. And it was on Craig Soder's birthday. So, may he rest in peace. That was a cool final tally. But man, it was,
hell yeah.
There's some fun stories in there.
Dude,
I wish I had more time. We need to reconnect again for a visit at some point. But
we'll get through the line of people and then repeat again.
Yeah, no, please keep me in the.
It's been so fun.
No,
bro, feel feel free to share this episode with like your host family. I feel like that'd be so fun to have them at least be like, hey, listen to this, hour and a half in. We talk about you guys. That'd be, or not host family, but the Washingtons, Michelle Washington and her
No,
kid.
I will share that with her for sure.
Because we're Elena, the last episode, and now you're the second episode that we're streaming now to our page, now to the uncensored page, and we're seeing how this goes for a little bit, to see if we can get some people to start watching from this side of it. But either way, this is going on the Spotify, Apple Music,
I love it, man.
podcast, so you can share it, and it's a lot easier now to listen to because you don't have to have it on YouTube anymore. You can just
that's what I've been doing. Well, so mentioned earlier, I've been chilling at the office by myself Monday through Friday. I'm telling you, some of this podcast has helped me get through the day sometimes where I'm just like, I need a little pick me up. So I'll just throw my AirPods in and listen to some fun book stories. So it's
give us a rating on the page, then that way we can raise some awareness. Share.
Yeah,
I mean, the best thing people can do at this point for us is just to share it. Just share that it exists, get it out there. I feel like even if it's just within alumni, like there's 150,000 living alumni. So if 10,000 of them like it, that'd be great. Because it'd be so fun to have my goal and aim eventually, once this is all completely polished and produced decently well, if it gets to that point, is to have it be a place where people can go listen to fun stories to get through the day. Rookies that are looking to go into Southwestern can kind of listen to some real life stories from some real life people that like are now in the outside world talking about this objectively,
Sure.
And so, yeah, thank you for being on. We're going to have, I don't know who we're, final announcements. We have Fido coming up. So I'm excited to have Fido on there. And then other than that, looking forward to having you again.
Y'all got to get me back. This is a blast. And
it's so fun, dude.
Yeah, it is. Just whether talking about book philosophies or, just families that you meet, it's awesome. So I love all this stuff.
It's a good, healthy trip down memory lane.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, Andres, great catching up with you, man. Can't wait to listen to some more of these over the next couple of weeks. But keep me in the loop. Hope everything continues to go well.
Hell yeah, bro. Hey, and best of luck with continuing on and growing the gym and just
Thanks.
with your endeavors at the analytics position.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So yeah, peace out. Reach out. Oh, look for my book is coming out, so look for that in March. And other than that,
cool. You got my number now, so let me know more of those details.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right, catch you later. See ya.
Bye.